Hey, everybody. Welcome to the session. In a moment, I will be joined by Jake Prislak, who is an insights professional and famed research geek. We'll talk more about that. Jake and I hit it off on LinkedIn, where we quickly found each other to be challengers of the conventions in market research, and trying to push the boundaries and push towards truer truths out in the world. If you're not already one of Jake's 10,000 followers on LinkedIn, I think that you'll quickly find that he has no challenge or no problem challenging the status quo. I think we'll bring in Jake here. Hey, Jake, how are you?
Hey, Hunter, I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
Very good, thank you. I think it's 5 p.m. where you are?
It is indeed. It's nearly 1 o'clock and sort of dog walk time over here, and you're just getting right into the coffee hour, I would say. So
we refer to that as happy hour usually, but dog walk seems like a healthier option.
That's where I get into the 10,000 steps. We'll try to anyway.
I saw that. I want to hear about it, whether you're being successful with that. But before we get ahead of ourselves, so you want to just jump in a little bit with where you're from, what you do for fun?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the insight manager at SailGP. We're based in the UK, but a global sport and entertainment product. For fun, obviously, I've got Hugo as our dog who we have to walk quite a lot, but also my girlfriend who keeps me on my toes as well. But then I think, quite a lot of people would have seen a lot of the sort of LinkedIn posts that I send out about some of the differences between sort of agency life, which I used to have, and sort of client side research that I'm just getting started in that sort of world.
Yeah. So one thing that struck me when we first connected was your point that you didn't just fall into the insight space, which is a common theme. Certainly was for me over 20 years ago. I kind of found my way into this industry, but yours was very intentional. So would you talk for just a sec about what I'd call your insights origin story, how you got into this career?
Yeah, of course. So I actually did a sports degree at university, and then in my master's, my thesis was with disabled individuals. And I was just fascinated by this subject right from an early sort of start at university. And I was interviewing and conducting this piece of research for my master's thesis with disabled individuals. And I got hooked right from the start. Looking back, it was probably the worst research project I've run ever in my life. And I don't think I would ever be hired as a researcher off the back of that project whatsoever. But it was a starting point where it was interviewing disabled individuals about their sort of life, some of the problems that they were having in the community. And then I was able then to share those results with some senior leaders at a sort of a government level. And then they were able to sort of provide some actions and some actions off the back of those results. And that was the first time where I saw the value of just listening to people and then providing their story back in a more professional, actionable way back to other individuals who could make something happen or make change. And that's how maybe sort of gravitated into that sort of the research industry off the back of a project that I got a really big interest in from the start.
Yeah, it's funny you talk about that original project. I refer to those as your high school yearbook projects, where if you look back at photos of yourself when you were 16 or whatever, you cringe. I think about projects like that early in my career that I was so proud of at the time, and now I look back and go, oh.
I thought that project was like world leading. I thought it was the best project I would have done ever. But now looking back, it was one of my most it was terrible.
I guess that's part of the journey, right?
Yeah, it is.
So SailGP is you talk about a global sport property. You want to talk just a moment about that, and then I'm interested to hear about your mission and your self-proclaimed status as the research geek as well.
Of course. So yeah, like I said, it's a global sailing sports entertainment property where we have 11 races around the world, competing nation versus nation. And we've seen double growth for the last 3 seasons, and we're soon going to be going into season 4. Next week, we've got our Sydney race, which hopefully people watching can also watch on television, and then New Zealand, and then going back to the US for the sort of the grand final when we get to there as well. But yeah, there was one of the sort of moments where I thought, you know what, I could go that sort of client side role was the fact that it was the first sort of research professional joining the organization. And that would, allow me to have a lot of different opportunities, at the organization.
Interesting. So prior to this role, you were on the agency side.
Yeah, so my very first job in research was agency side. And then gradually sort of moved up the career ladder agency side. I probably made a lot of assumptions, and I probably swore at a lot of clients behind their back saying, why on earth are you emailing me this at X time? Why do you want this at Friday at 5:00 when I know you're not going to read it? All those sort of assumptions that I made as a client side researcher, which now, looking back, there's a lot of differences that I would sort of take from that as well.
Interesting. I can't wait to talk about that. But before we jump into that, talk a little bit about the Research Geek and that platform and your blog and the content you create as the Research Geek. What's your mission? What prompted you to take that tack, to use a sailing term?
Yeah, good question. So I think if I'm being completely honest, it wasn't meant to be a blog at the start, or it wasn't meant to be the sort of status that it has got now. So before I got my first job in the industry, I compared my CV to a couple of other people. And when we looked at our sort of CVs, I just very quickly noticed that that the only difference was our names. Dissertation, very similar, a bit of an online survey, quants, a bit of a snazzy title. The modules were the same, the course titles were the same, everything was the same. So if you put my CV against someone else's, there would be no difference whatsoever. And I thought, well, how can I make myself different in the market? And that was when I wanted to go into research, creating a standalone blog to have those sorts of opinions about the industry, right or wrong. Some people called me out to say, you know what, you're completely wrong, which was fine. Other people came out to say, yeah, that's a little bit different. You've thought about it in a different way. And that's how, the sort of following grew. And my name got shared a lot more. Now it is that, standalone, I guess, personal media space for me where, I can share, different content pieces and to, have an opinion on the sector where I think, a lot can change and move forward, and hopefully using that platform to share those opinions.
That's awesome. That's really cool. All right, so you had all these agency person experiences and assumptions and biases, and then it sounds like you've had this sort of awakening, or you had this revelation of sorts as you went to the other side, which, look, I've been on the, I guess, you'd call it the agency side for the vast majority of my career. You work so closely together. So in one way, to sort of phrase it as like opposite sides of the table or whatever, that's almost uncomfortable. But yet, you clearly have realized some discoveries that sounds like could, really help people, whether they're on either side or making a transition. So what was the big like slap in the face as you came into your new role on the client side that opened your eyes?
Good question.
Or what was the short list of discoveries, maybe?
Yeah, no, good question. I think it was the fact that once you receive an agency report, just receiving that report is not good enough anymore, and that it gets it gets split out into different nuggets and different sections, and it gets shared in many different ways internally at a client side, as a client side researcher, which I didn't really get to see when I was an agency researcher. I was that person who was working late at night, drumming out the reports, answering new business pitches, and then moving on to the next project. And I wasn't really able to see that other side of the client side life, which, if I look back now, the main big differences are one, that sort of actionable what to do next piece, which I think a lot comes from that client side role and knowing the industry and knowing the business more. I think one is that sort of speed to action as well. So whereas sort of going from insight to action rather than just having the sort of the report and the insights there. And then I also think it's a little bit to do with the communicating of insights as well. So predominantly agencies would share a 30-page PDF report, and that might then get shared out to various different stakeholders. But now, like for me as well, I'm starting to think about actually how can that get shared in multiple different ways. So I become like a internal content creator for the business, creating different pieces of content around the research conducted, so that can suit different audiences and different sort of stakeholders at SailGP.
That's really cool. I mean, I think that idea, so there's a few themes that come through that. One of which is kind of the biggest cliche in insights that continues to be talked about, of storytelling. It's all about storytelling. And one thing that I've always, is continually a challenge is, is a story something, if you imagine like a PowerPoint deliverable, which is what many are still working within, at least foundationally. A story means that, or many times it's like, it should all flow together. It should all hang together. But the notion that you mentioned about you're really threading together smaller pieces, these memes, these kind of viral little components or nuggets that then get copied and pasted, put into other contexts, put into other decks. That's the reality of it. And did you find that the way you'd been creating reports and what you thought everybody wanted on your agency side totally shifted from what was useful and helpful in your client role? And like, what are the tips and tricks that you've discovered that you think is the happy medium between those two?
Yeah, good question. So I think actually one of the big changes I've had to think about is that time of storytelling. So if a client comes to me if I was agency side and I was completing a project, we've obviously got those sort of final deliverable deadlines to meet personally, because hey, finance want to bill that client, then I need to move on to the next client, and that's how it is. But client side is very different. So I might receive a report tomorrow, but I know that timing just isn't right to feed out that insight and that information. So I might actually sit on that report for 1 or 2 weeks before I then start sort of sharing those insights and sharing some of that information, just because I know I've worked out how to work with different people within the organization. And then I also know that there's a time and a place when I can start to share those sort of nuggets of insights. I think other things, what I always try to tell agencies is to get yourself in the client side office. So like moving forward, I'm really wanting to try and allow agencies to come into the office for either meetings or just simply to work in our office to get used to the environment and just to hear what people are talking about within the business. So then, they can get used to the ins and outs of SailGP, but they also get to sort of earwig on what's going on and the sort of conversations that are happening. So then when they provide the reports, they're adding that little bit of extra detail that is really helpful for me when I'm starting to share research and share these sort of nuggets of information as well.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean that piece about that, insights teams, whether on the client or agency side, thinking of ourselves as sort of content creators, I think is a really interesting idea. And you made the comment that it's like, look, one medium, it doesn't work for all audiences. And like, it's so ironic, I guess, that we know that as marketers, right? We know that like putting an ad on TV is no longer the panacea approach, and yet that's kind of what a lot of insights teams do. It's like we put our content in a PowerPoint, and it's over with. But taking that more multi-channel approach and thinking, we're trying to get uptake with the teams and adoption and socialize these ideas. I think that idea that at least think of yourself at times as kind of a content creator is a powerful idea. Like what are some of the successes you've had doing that? I mean, are you like making little videos of things? Is it almost like, how are you doing that to better communicate, better enable your teams to like grab a hold of these ideas internally?
Yeah, no, now you're stealing my thunder and my inner workings now, Hunter. So be careful. But no, what I would definitely say is that it's fairly early days for SailGP and the research function, but the ideas that I've got are to think of the research function as that sort of creator economy. So things like, let's just think about the very basic profile questions that we include in panel data when we ask people what type of mediums they are interested in or they look at on a daily basis. I think about that when I receive a report from an agency. So a 30-page research report could get split into, 10 one-page infographics that could get sent out via the business. You could start a internal research podcast and share 1 or 2 minute snippets of those results for people on the move. You could just very easily do sort of little emails to different people, depending on what they prefer. You could do a generic sort of debrief with set individuals, but that presentation is really specific for that department. So they're not listening to elements that really aren't affecting their role or their position in the business. It's fully focused on who they are and what they need to get out of this session. Including things on whiteboards and just making it really fun and interactive. But I really think that and things including like a research depository and which I know is more of a buzzword, I guess, in the industry at the moment. But it's thinking about any other way that you generally consume information and consume content, like you said, on video as well, and how can you then share research and insight using that exact same method. And I think that's where maybe I think the role or the job description of a researcher client side may start to change. You may get those fully functional researchers who are sort of methodology and maybe solutionists. Then you'll also get those sort of content creator type roles, which are able then to start sort of taking elements from a report and creating sort of content off the back of that. And completely trying to change the way that research could be sort of shared and utilized within a business.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, I think about, we'll publish big findings from our database that talk about, some big insight about why people are doing what they're doing. And when we do one big, not a white paper, but one big sort of publishing, there's infinite ways. There's little sound bites, there's video clips, there's, podcasts, there's email, sort of one-liners. There's all sorts of content that comes out of it. And you're describing that oftentimes those reports, those insights reports are really just kind of the fodder that you're drawing all that content from. That's a really cool.
And it's thinking about that, those snippets of details that you share are only relevant to individuals who are working within the organization at that moment in time. So it's not a case of you create 30 pieces of content from a report and then that's it.
Yeah.
I'm saying that actually let's keep those in a folder for argument's sake. And we know as an organization, people do move on, people stay, new ideas and fresh faces come into the business who then don't maybe have the same knowledge base as other people within the business. So that's then you're then going to be resharing some of the research that you've conducted.
Yeah.
You've already created the content behind the scenes, but now you're just going to be resharing some of that research again and again, just at different moments in the year.
Yeah. I think one thing that's I hear you talking about, if somebody were trying to kind of enact this mindset in their their day-to-day work as whether an insights agency person or an insights client side professional, I kind of hear you talking about people, internal stakeholders, and decisions. And it sounds to me like it's sort of a combination of who are the people and what decisions are they trying to make and trying to tailor the content to that. I mean, is that how it shapes up in your mind?
Yeah, definitely. And I think part of it and part of the first, I would say 3 months at SailGP is understanding how people tick, and understand who those individuals and stakeholders are, not just at work, but just in general life, I would say. And I think the vast majority of my role is communicating. It's talking to individuals. It's via email or in person or in meetings. So I have to understand what makes people tick. I now have a really good understanding of, I know this person really wants a PDF report with loads of data and numbers, whereas this person literally just wants a quick email with the stats and some of the information that they need. So I'm constantly tailoring how one piece of information will be shared to various different people around the business. And the more people who join and the more different sort of interests lie, that's where, you start to, in a way, segment individuals into different sort of content pieces. So you know that, hey, this group love the data and the charts and the PDF reports. That's fine. Other people, they're on the move all the time. So maybe just a quick audio message or, like WhatsApp audio sounds unprofessional, but it's quick, it's easy, and it's on the move for people who, if we're constantly moving to event, they don't have time to read a 30-page report. I can tell them in a minute what the key headlines are for their role.
We know so well that consumers won't sit still and hear, our long tail marketing message, and yet we treat our internal audiences. We so rarely apply what we know about human beings out in the marketplace to our internal teams, and that's essentially what you're describing when you talk about segmenting and tailoring and giving them the information that will actually be helpful to make decisions. I think that's really cool. So, okay, there's, then there's like efficiency, working together, so that's, I think, really useful in terms of what you do kind of once you get the insights and how the client or the agency side teams can help integrate more with that. There's a lot there. I mean, imagine, what are some of the, we've kind of teased everybody with like the taboos, the myths, you talked about no one tells the real truth when we were chatting the other day. So Matt, let's imagine like, an agency practitioner and their client side colleague, walk into a bar, all bets are off. We're gonna spill some tea. We're gonna totally lay it on the table. What are the things that are never kind of talked about, or between that those two sides of the equation that you think should be that if one understood about the other and vice versa would help us work better together, would make this more enjoyable and more productive together?
Yeah, I think the first one is the challenges, like the actual challenges that an agency faces and the challenges the client side faces. So I go into a lot of sort of supplier and agency meetings, and one of the first questions they ask, which is a good question, is what challenges are you facing or could face internally, which is great question, helps me a lot. But the question what I often don't ask, which I should more, is, well, what challenges do you normally face when you're working with a client?
Yeah.
I personally think that not many would tell me the truth. They would be they'll tell me politically the right answer without actually telling me, how can I help you make sure that I'm not an idiot to you, and how you can get the most out of me and I can get the most out of you.
Yep.
I think the second one is that, which I touched on there, is that open relationship where we're not treating a supplier or an agency as an agency, and we're not treating a client as a client or like a monetary value. At the end of the day, it's one can't work without the other. And I think we should treat it like that in research, in terms of, there's value add both ways, and to get the most out of people, we've got to treat people right. I think the other angles is that more, what do we expect from a final deliverable in research? So is it the fact that, yes, I'm more than happy to receive a 30-page report which just includes charts? Or do I need that extra added value in terms of, what do you actually think of these results and where do you think our business should go? I remember agency side, I got told a couple of times that, oh no, client won't like that. They're paying big bucks, so let's not tell them that. It is the truth, but they won't want to know that. Now I'm client side.
Every client practitioner is like, no, I don't want to know
the truth. I don't want you to be the political answer telling me the nice thing. I want them to just tell me what it is, basically. And then I think the last one is more the communication. So constantly it's an email, and I think we should start to move away from that and start using, like we do on Slack, and it's more sort of instant messaging, and it's treating that supplier agency side as a combined relationship, which means that we're not treating people with any disrespect, and you can instantly have that sort of one-to-one communication with client and agency, and both get the best out of each other.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I've noticed more and more in recent years, we use Slack, and we have started, opening the aperture and slacking in some cases with various stakeholders, including clients. And I've also noticed an increase in texting. A lot of people I work closest with are like, just text me. That people would rather, and it's not so that, to your point, this isn't like 1980s agency where someone can contact you at 10 p.m. and ask for, a piece of data or something. It's much more so that you can, have sort of that open conduit. I think that's a cool example, or a cool embodiment of that mindset that you're talking about.
Yeah, but then from an agency side, if I brought that to the table at an agency, the immediate whoa, what on earth are you doing here, is that either I'm taking my time away from a different account or a different client, and this client is going to be pestering me with constant messages, or you're going to be spending too much time on that client and not enough on the other. How I think of it is that I actually wouldn't pester an agency if I was using something more instant like Slack or WhatsApp and things, because I know it was sent, I could see it being sent, and I know someone's going to reply to me at some point during the day. Whereas email is, you feel like it goes off into the distant, and you don't know when someone's actually going to sort of come back to you with an answer.
Interesting. Yeah, it's because you've got that access and familiarity. Everybody behaves more calmly and more strategically working together.
Yeah,
those are really cool insights. Well, half an hour, as I anticipated, has flown by. So I want to want to be respectful of everybody's time. Of course, anyone can. We didn't do any Q&A in this, and we found that a lot of people will watch this subsequent. So if anyone wanted to, ask questions or reach out, I presume you're open to that, Jake. How should people get in touch with you?
Oh yeah, if you just connect with me on LinkedIn, or drop any comments in this video, or private message me. That's perfectly fine. I'm pretty good at getting back to people. And yeah, I think if we've got 1 minute, so like one of the previous posts I posted a little while ago when I said I was offering sort of 5 people like mentoring or opportunities to just chat, and
I wanted to ask about that. Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah, they got taken up within a couple of days, which was really good for me because I didn't actually know how it was going to go, but also bad for me because I felt quite bad when I actually had to tell people that I just physically do not have any more time in my diary to help. But I think one of the things I took away from that is that my messages are completely open and people can just message me for help, or I know some people I'm helping with more like career related projects, looking for that next step, or just looking over their CV and things like that, which I'm more than happy to help people in the industry if you ever need it.
That's really cool. And I think, the content that you put out in LinkedIn is really instructive. At least I've found there's a lot of, lists and guidance, and I'm sure you draw from discussions like those that you're having. I know. I think anybody, as I said, seems like everybody's already following you, but if anybody isn't, I think they take a lot away from that. But this was really cool, man. I mean, I think there were some really useful things. I learned some things, which I really appreciate. So thanks for taking that time to share that unique perspective, and we'll look forward to more collaboration and stuff like this and on LinkedIn.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks for having me.
All right, Jake, be well.